I've always preferred being home alone. When you're 22 and trying to finish a massive college thesis, a completely empty house is a luxury. My parents had gone out of town for a 4-day weekend, leaving me with our quiet suburban house all to myself. The first 2 days were entirely peaceful. Just me, endless cups of coffee, and the typing of my laptop. But on the third night, that completely changed. It was roughly 10:30 p.m. The house was pitch black, except for the harsh glow of my laptop screen in the living room. Suddenly, a heavy knock echoed from the front door. I froze. We lived in a very secluded neighborhood, where people rarely walked around at night. I walked over to the front hallway, keeping my footsteps as silent as possible, and looked through the peephole. Standing on the porch was a man wearing a bright red polo shirt and a matching baseball cap. He was holding a large brown cardboard box. He looked like a standard delivery driver, except for one major detail. He wasn't looking at the door. He was staring directly at the living room window, right where my laptop light was visible. I opened the door just a crack, keeping the security chain engaged. "Can I help you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. The man instantly snapped his head toward me. He had a massive, incredibly wide smile that didn't seem to reach his eyes. "Delivery for Marcus," he said. His voice was unusually high-pitched. "There's no Marcus here," I replied, feeling a sudden knot form in my stomach. "You have the wrong house." The man didn't move. He didn't look down at the box to check the address. He just kept staring through the crack in the door, that terrifying smile completely frozen on his face. "Are you sure?" he asked softly. "Are you all alone in there, Marcus?" My blood ran completely cold. My name isn't Marcus, but the fact that he was asking if I was alone sent an immediate wave of pure panic through my chest. "My dad is in the kitchen," I lied, my voice cracking slightly, "and he's calling the police right now. Get off our property." The man's smile slowly vanished. His face went entirely blank. He didn't look angry. He just looked robotic. He stepped backward off the porch, fading into the dark shadow of the driveway. I quickly locked the heavy deadbolt and ran to the living room window to watch him leave. But I didn't see a delivery truck. There was no vehicle parked on our street at all. He had walked into our cul-de-sac on foot, in the middle of the night. I shut my laptop to kill the light, sitting in the absolute darkness of the living room. 10 minutes passed, then 20. I was just starting to convince myself that he was gone, when I heard a faint, distinct sound coming from the back of the house. It was the sound of our wooden deck stairs creaking. Step, step, step. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I crept into the kitchen, which faced the backyard. The glass sliding door was covered by thin vertical blinds. I peeked through a tiny gap. The man in the red shirt was standing on the deck. He had dropped the cardboard box. It was completely flat and empty. He was holding a long silver metal crowbar, and he was gently placing the edge of it into the frame of our sliding door. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my phone, locked myself in the upstairs bathroom, and dialed 911. I whispered my address to the operator, terrified that any loud noise would guide him straight to me. While I was on the phone, I heard the terrifying sound of glass shattering downstairs. He was inside the house. I sat on the cold tile floor, clutching a pair of heavy scissors, listening to the floorboards creaking below. I heard his footsteps moving slowly through the kitchen, then into the living room. Every few seconds, he would call out in that same creepy, high-pitched voice, "Marcus? Where are you, Marcus?" The footsteps started coming up the stairs. Creak, creak, creak. I closed my eyes, tears streaming down my face, completely certain that I was about to be trapped. The footsteps reached the top landing. They walked past the first bedroom, then stopped right outside the bathroom door. The doorknob slowly jiggled. Rattle, rattle. I held my breath, squeezing the scissors. Suddenly, loud sirens wailed from the street outside. Red and blue lights flashed through the small bathroom window. Downstairs, The front door was kicked open by the police. I heard heavy footsteps sprinting away from the bathroom door, followed by the sound of the man crashing through the broken backyard door. The police searched the woods behind our house for hours, but they never found him. They did, however, find something else. Hidden in the bushes right outside my living room window was a sleeping bag, a pair of binoculars, and several empty water bottles. He hadn't just randomly shown up that night. He had been living in our bushes, watching me through the window, waiting for the exact moment he knew I was entirely home alone. When I was 19, I rented a small one-bedroom house in a rural town in Ohio. It was an old, isolated property surrounded by dense woods. Because the area was incredibly safe, I had a terrible habit that my friends always warned me about. I never locked my windows. I loved the crisp night air, and I felt completely secure. One Friday night in October, I was home alone watching movies in bed. It was around midnight when a sudden violent thunderstorm rolled in. The wind was howling, slamming heavy rain against the glass. I decided it was time to sleep, so I got up to close the windows. I went through the living room, the kitchen, and the bathroom, sliding each window shut and locking them against the storm. When I got back to my bedroom, I crawled under the covers, turned off the bedside lamp, and fell asleep to the heavy sound of the rain. Around 3:15 a.m., I woke up completely out of nowhere. There was no sudden noise, but I had that intense, primal feeling of being watched. The room was freezing cold. A sharp, icy draft was blowing directly across my face. I looked toward the bedroom window. It was wide open. The white curtains were blowing violently in the wind, soaked with rain. I groaned, assuming the old latch had simply failed under the heavy wind. I slid out of bed, shivering, and walked over to the window to shut it. I grabbed the wooden frame and pulled it down, but as I reached for the lock, my hand completely froze. The lock wasn't broken. It was flipped entirely to the open position. And looking closely at the white wooden windowsill, there were fresh, dark patches of wet mud. My heart skipped a beat. The mud was shaped into distinct footsteps, pointing inside the room. I slowly turned around, scanning the dark bedroom. My eyes adjusted to the shadows. Everything looked normal. My closet door was shut. The hallway outside was pitch black. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand, turning on the flashlight. I guided the beam of light across the floor. There, leading out of my bedroom and into the dark hallway, was a trail of wet, muddy footprints. Someone was inside the house with me right now. I felt a wave of absolute nausea. I was completely cornered in the back bedroom, and the only exit was the hallway where the footprints led. Keeping the flashlight lowered, I stepped into the hall, my muscles completely tense. The footprints led straight down the corridor and stopped abruptly at the door of my small laundry room. The door was cracked open about 2 inches. I stood there in the absolute silence of the house, the storm raging outside. I could hear the faint, steady sound of water dripping inside the laundry room. Drip, drip, drip. I raised my phone light and shined it through the crack in the door. The light illuminated the washing machine, a pile of clothes, and a pair of muddy, wet work boots. Someone was standing inside the small closet space directly behind the door. I could see the edge of a dark, rain-soaked canvas jacket. Then I heard it, a low, raspy breathing coming from inside the room. I didn't yell, I didn't confront them. I turned around and sprinted back into my bedroom, locking the door behind me. My hands were shaking so violently, I almost dropped my phone as I dialed 911. "Someone is in my house," I gasped to the operator. "They came through my window. They're hiding in the laundry room." The operator told me to stay on the line and that officers were en route, but because of my rural location, it would take them at least 15 minutes to arrive. 15 minutes felt like an absolute eternity. Just as the operator finished speaking, I heard the laundry room door creak open. Slow, heavy footsteps began walking down the hallway. Thud, thud, thud. They were wet, squelching sounds against the hardwood floor. They stopped right outside my bedroom door. I backed up into the furthest corner of my room, holding a heavy wooden lamp base like a club. The person on the other side didn't try to turn the knob. They didn't try to kick the door down. Instead, they just stood there. For 10 whole minutes, the only sound was the howling wind outside and the faint, raspy breathing coming from right through the thin wood of my door. Suddenly, I heard the footsteps move away. They didn't go back toward the laundry room. They went toward the front door. I heard the deadbolt click open and the heavy front door slam shut. When the police arrived, they found the front door wide open. The intruder was completely gone. They tracked the muddy footprints back to my bedroom window. But when they checked the outside yard, they found something that still haunts me to this day. There weren't just tracks leading to my window from that night. The police found a massive patch of trampled grass directly beneath my bedroom window, along with dozens of cigarette butts. The intruder hadn't just broken in because of the storm. He had been standing outside my window for weeks, watching me sleep every single night, just waiting for the one night I forgot to lock it.